Good morning, and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is the GOP. The Grand Old Party, the Republican Party, and the issue of slavery and racism in American history and politics. And this has to do with the current Republican presidential primaries going on across the country, where candidates are crisscrossing from states to states, making their arguments, talking to voters, sharing their views on town hall meetings, and so on and so forth. But in one such event that was organized by Fox News, former South Carolina governor and UN ambassador Nikki Haley was asked about the cause of the US Civil War. And Nikki Haley, as a former governor of a state and UN ambassador, couldn't answer that question outright. She fumbled on that question. We talk about third grade that question and answer. She could not even mention slavery as the main cause of the Civil War of the United States of America. She could not mention slavery. And in another event, about couple of weeks later, when she was asked about the issue of racism, she also could not even acknowledge the role of racism in American history and even some cases going on right now. She said, unquote, America had never been a racist country. But fellows, let's go ahead and hear what Nikki Haley had to say in an exchange with Jake Tapper of CNN. And then you guys will get to know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and hear what she had to say in regards to this issue. It's so astonishing. We're talking about former governor of a great state.
Earlier this week, you said that America has, quote, never been a racist country, unquote. Protections for the institution of slavery were written into the U.S. Constitution. The White House was built with slave labor. Your home state of South Carolina seceded from the Union, fought a war to defend the enslavement of Black people. I understand you don't think America's a racist country now, but we're here at a college. Do you really think as a historical matter, America has never been a racist country?
Think about what you're saying. First of all, I will tell you, when you look at, the Declaration of Independence, it was that, men are created equal with unalienable rights, right? That was what we all knew. But what I look at it as is I was a brown girl that grew up in a small rural town. We had plenty of racism that we had to deal with. But my parents never said we lived in a racist country. And I'm so thankful they didn't. Because for every brown and Black child out there, if you tell them they live or born in a racist country, you're immediately telling them they don't have a chance. And my parents would always say, you may have challenges. And yes, there will be people who are racist, but that doesn't define what you could do in this country. And so I think it's important that we tell all kids that, look, America is not perfect. We have our stains. We know that. But our goal should always be to make today better than yesterday. It's hugely important. And that's the problem I have is we have too many people with this national self-loathing. It is killing our country. We have got to go back to loving America. We are blessed because that little brown girl in that small rural town in South Carolina, she grew up to become the first female minority governor in history. She then went on to be UN ambassador, and now she's running for president of the United States. I want every brown and Black child to see that and say, no, I don't live in a country that was formed on racism. I live in a country where they wanted all people to be equal and to make sure that they had life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay, but just to push back a bit, because I was a history major in New Hampshire. You're talking about the ideals of America. But America was founded institutionally on many racist precepts, including slavery.
But when you look at said all men are created equal, I think the intent was to do the right thing. Now, did they have to go fix it along the way? Yes, but I don't think the intent was ever that we were going to be a racist country. The intent was everybody was going to be created equally. And as we went through time, they fixed the things that were not all men are created equal. They made sure women became equal too. All of these things happen over time. But I refuse to believe that the premise of when they formed our country was based on the fact that it was a racist country to start with. I refuse to believe that. I have to know in my heart and in everybody's heart that we live in the best country in the world and we are a work in progress and we've got a long way to go to fix all of our little kinks. But I truly believe our founding fathers had the best of intentions when they started and we fixed it along the way, and we should always look at it that way.
I want to ask you about a comment you made earlier.
All right, fellows. You just heard former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, going at it with Jake Tapper on the issue of slavery and racism and so on. Now, fellows, Nikki Haley got me on this one. She really got me on this one. I mean, I understand she was trying to finesse it, talking about, then and now and all that stuff, fellows. There is no way you can say that America was never a racist country. This country was founded on the precept of racism. You can never have slaves that were considered 3/5 of humans beings and not say that it was not founded on the basis of racism. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know what the heck she was talking about, but America was founded on the precept of racism, slavery, and all of that. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the history of the United States of America, there's no way you can even fathom the idea that racism was not an underlying factor of that founding of this country. It was part of it. Yes, they ended up fixing it up later. I get that. But at the end of the day, they had to fix it because of the problems that slavery had started to cause this country. And in one case, when she was even asked about the issue of the Civil War, she even, I don't know whether she refused to answer it, or she didn't know, or she just basically omitted the idea that the cause of the Civil War, the main underlying fact of the Civil War was slavery. America's Civil War was about slavery. Whether you agreed with slavery or against slavery, or you were for human rights and the rights of blacks or whatever, or business or states' rights, at the end of the day, the underlying factor of the U.S. Civil War was about slavery. And this woman couldn't even come up with any sensible answers to these issues. And this is the woman who wants to be president of the United States of America. I'm sorry, fellas. I'm sorry. You can never vote for a woman or a man who doesn't know that the underlying factor of the U.S. Civil War was slavery. And who doesn't know that the precept of the founder of this country was about racism. And how in the world would a person like this be a good president for a great country like this? I'm sorry, fellas. She can never be. She can never be. And apparently, from what is going on, she wouldn't even be the nominee. She's not even going to come anywhere close to Donald Trump right now. Donald Trump, you can say anything about Donald Trump. Donald Trump even acknowledges that this country was a racist country. Donald Trump acknowledges that this country, the Civil War, was fought on the issue of slavery. No matter what you think about Donald Trump might have said some crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, he also understands the role of slavery as well as racism in American history and politics. So if you're looking at a former governor as well as UN ambassador who cannot even come close to answering the questions of the basic factors of America's Civil War, I'm sorry, fellas. I mean, you see, the funny thing about this whole thing is that Nikki Haley's parents migrated through Canada to the United States of America. And she talking about America has never been a racist country. I think she should go and ask her parents about America. I know some people will say, oh, she's trying to get the votes of the white Southness and so. So she's trying to kowtow to those people. So, fellas, I get that. I get that. You try to get votes and all of that. But at the end of the day, you don't sell your soul. You don't sell your soul on the issue of slavery and racism in America just to get some votes to become a Republican Party nominee. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You don't do that. And if that is what she's doing, and she should be ashamed of herself. I mean, come on, fellas, give me a break. And we're talking about an Indian American whose parents migrated through Canada to the United States of America. Her father, who became a professor at Voorhees College, a small college in South Carolina, predominantly African-American college. That's what we're talking about. Her father was hired as a professor by an African-American college. I mean, are you kidding me? It was a black college that hired her father, Voorhees College in South Carolina. And according to her own memoir, when they first moved into South Carolina, her parents couldn't find a place to rent because of the color of their skin, because of who they were. This is in her own memoir. She stated in her own memoir that her parents were not able to rent a place because of who they were. So at the end of the day, they had to buy a place outright. And they were told, as far as they live in that house and they don't entertain black people in that house, they are fine. And whenever they're selling that property back, they have to make sure they sell it back to the owner, not to sell it to a black family, a black family. And this is in her own memoir. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Selling a soul to get votes? I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, you don't sell your soul for this. And we're talking about an issue of slavery and racism in America. Look, a couple of some months ago, I did a program where I talked about how great America is and so on. And I talked about it, that America is the best place for black and brown people. And I stand by it. But to say that America was never a racist country, are you kidding me? I mean, racism was embedded in state constitutions. What are we talking about? Racism was embedded in a lot of the state constitutions, where black and brown people could not live in certain places, could not go to schools, segregated schools, and so on and so forth. And then you're going to sit down here and talk that and say that America had never been a racist country? I mean, the federal government was racist. The federal government, federal institutions were all racist. That is what we are talking about. And for her to, I mean, running to become president of a great country like this, and not to acknowledge the evil past of America, as well as acknowledge the fact that, yes, America used to be, but now it is no more as a federal institution, a racist country, which I understand, because right now there are no federal or state laws that pretty much have anything on their books that says that they can willfully discriminate against people based on their race. But prior to the 50s, civil rights and so on and so forth, a lot of the states, as well as the federal government, was racist. There's nothing wrong saying that. I mean, these white voters in the South that she's trying to kowtow to, they know that. They know the country was racist some time ago. So you can say that. You can acknowledge the past, the evil past, and also talk about the present, how things have changed and things have improved. There's nothing wrong with that. But to stand there blatantly and say that this country had never been a racist country, I mean, come on. Come on, Nikki. You gotta be ashamed of yourself. You gotta be ashamed of yourself. I mean, you would expect if Donald Trump, like I said earlier, Donald Trump hasn't even said it. Donald Trump even acknowledged that this country in the past was racist, as well as the issue of slavery being the main cause of the Civil War. So, fellas, I mean, one thing that gets me with, especially when we talk about people of color and immigrants who migrate to this country, I myself being an immigrant who came to this country, America has been good to me. I won't lie to you guys about it. It's a great country. I love America. But I also understand that America was one time a racist country. I also understand that racism still exists in America. And I'll always acknowledge that. And I did a segment some months ago, and I talked about it. But what I've also come to realize about most immigrants is that when they migrate to this country and they find out living in this country and things get well for them and so on and so forth, they tend to forget the hardcore fight, the struggles that the African Americans, the civil rights, that paved the way for how the American society that you see today is today. Because you go back 50, 60, 70 years ago, with segregation laws, Jim Crow laws, and so on and so forth, America is not the same America that you see today. And a lot of these immigrants who come from different countries tend not to know about the history of the civil rights struggles by African Americans in this country. The struggles that the African American had to go through for this society that you call great today to be. If not for the African American in America, I don't care whether you're an Indian, Arab, African from Africa, or from the Caribbean or whatever, you will not be enjoying the benefits of what you are enjoying today in the United States of America. So we are foreigners, immigrants, whether you're Chinese, Indian, African, Arab, whatever, you always have to take your hat to the African American in America. Because it's the African Americans who have to go through the struggle, through their ancestors who were brought here as slaves, have to fight for them to achieve civil rights that today we all enjoy today in this great country. But a lot of times we tend to forget all of this. So we become successful in America and we forget that for us to get to where we are today, it was the African American who struggled and fought to pave the way for all of us. And that is where, I mean, you can tell where Nikki Haley is getting at. I mean, going back to her own parents, her father was first employed by Black college. First employed by a Black college. So she understands the history of South Carolina. And we're talking about South Carolina, fellas. This was the first state to succeed from the Union. And that's what we are talking about. So even if you don't know anything about American history, at least you know South Carolina is the first state to succeed from the Union. And the underlying issue was slavery. It wasn't about no damn states' rights. States' rights. What are you talking about? I believe in states' rights, but the issue wasn't about states' rights. It was about slavery. You know, so fellows, it is very sad. It is very sad, especially when you see a woman of color, a woman of Indian descent, whose parents migrated to this country and gave her the opportunity that she had to deny the very things that minorities have to go through, suffer, struggle to go through in this country. It's a shame. It's a shame. And she has to be, she has to apologize for that. I mean, there's no way. Look, I understand. She was trying to finesse it, come back and talk about, right now. I get all of that. Like I stated earlier, I've said it myself. I mean, how America has been great, for the past 50, 60 years. Yes, a lot of things have changed. But you can never say that it had never been. Come on, man. It had never been. Oh, please. And that is the issue. We all acknowledge that right now, you will not find any federal or state law that basically blatantly discriminate against minorities or any group. But it was 70, 80 years ago. It was part of the legal system of this country. And minorities had to struggle and fight for the civil rights that all of us benefit today in this country. It is unfortunate. It is very, very unfortunate. But this goes down to the Republican Party. I mean, the GOP used to be the party of minorities going back 50, 60 years ago. Majority of African Americans were Republicans. But right after the civil rights signed by Lyndon Johnson, it flipped the South. And the Democrats became for civil rights and the Republicans against civil rights. But it was even the Republicans who basically helped Lyndon Johnson to pass that Civil Rights Act into law. If not for Republicans, the Civil Rights Act would never have been passed. But unfortunately today, when you talk about the GOP, it's not the same old GOP. The party of Lincoln is no more. So fellas, it is sad, especially when you're talking about a woman of color, a woman whose parents migrated from another country to this great country to deny the struggles that the very people that she associated herself with when she came to this country had to go through and pretend that it didn't exist. If that is for just to get votes, then she has to be ashamed of herself. Because you can kowtow to groups in terms of getting votes and so on and so forth. But when it comes to the issue of civil rights and the issue of slavery, I'm sorry, fellas. That is not something that you have to kowtow to nobody. I don't care how precious that vote is. That is something you are talking about that is dealing with humanity. And you have to stand up for that. So, fellas, let me end here today. And if it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys and have a great week. And peace and love.